Sure.
I need me a category. Let me think of a category for you. I got a category. I know exactly what we'll do. Let's see. I'm trying to. It's always funny when I try to do this and okay. Now I'm gonna post this online. I think we're live. Yeah, there we are. I'm looking like Elmer Fudd, but that's all good. Okay, so you should know how to play this game because you've heard plenty of people do this. We are discussing. Okay, so two categories. Play Black Love.
Okay.
We're gonna do a Caribbean version. And then I got late text. I have a text on here saying that you haven't got the link yet.
Oh, right. Yes. But that was 1 second before I got it.
Okay. So the game is Black Love. You got 10 seconds to name 5 things in a category that I give you. You can't say no filler words, but you're a very proper Jamaican woman, so you're not gonna say any filler words. We're gonna do our Caribbean version today, okay? Let me put wait a minute. I got it. Let me reset. Okay. 5 Caribbean foods. Go.
Mango, pineapple, coconut, cassava, yam, banana, plantain.
Got it.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna blank out. Ackee and saltfish. I mean, I don't know why I can think of anything. Oh God.
I thought you was gonna say brown fish stew or something.
I know. Brown soup chicken, curry chicken, jerk chicken. Just, man. That putting you on the spot there.
Okay. You want to do it one more time?
Or the same category, different category?
It's a different category. You gotta have a different category.
Different category. Sour up.
Still staying in the Caribbean?
That's fine.
Still staying in the Caribbean. 5 countries in the Caribbean. Go.
Jamaica, Cayman Islands, Cuba, Bahamas.
You said
I know. This is just as Grenada. I only had like a couple more, right? St. Lucia, Antigua, Turks and Caicos. Sorry. That got me.
Okay, last category. So we know all of those beautiful people of African descent in the Caribbean come from the African continent. So we're gonna go to the African continent. Name 5 countries on the continent of Africa. Go.
Ghana, Zambia, Zaire, Kenya, Congo.
You did that. That was too easy for you. Have you been to Zaire?
No, I have not.
Oh, I want to go. But you've been to Ghana? Oh, okay. Yeah, I love Ghana. I haven't been in over 20 years now, but I loved it when I went. What year did you go?
I went 2008.
Oh, you went way more recent than I have. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade, and I'm a licensed psychologist here hanging out with the amazing Miss Alethea Bonello. She is the office manager at A Healing Paradigm and doing all things amazing front and back. So when I need someone to come and I'm like, come talk to me, Alethea is here. Welcome, Alethea.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Dr. Ojelade.
Yay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you questions. So this is gonna be a dialogue. We're gonna talk about depression, and I was wondering. I'm like, I wonder how many people. So this will be a good conversation because I always wonder how many people that aren't mental health professionals, how much they know about depression. That's what I'm wondering. So, what do you know about seasonal affective disorder?
Well, not a lot. I thought I was going to have time to research, but essentially, based on the commercials and what you see or what you hear people talk about, that during a particular time of the year, there are people who just feel tired, fatigued, sad for some reason. Like we say that people get the holiday blues or the Christmas blues, but typically when there are large gatherings or holiday occasions that people don't have a chance to participate, or it reminds them of the void that they have in their life, that it triggers some sort of incident, negative incident, or just an incident where they just feel sad. Um, they're not motivated to participate in said activities, or it could even just be the change of temperature or the changing of the weather. Some people in the winter have what are called the winter blues, as opposed to people in the summertime being active and in the sun. And so that lack of interaction with the sun, the different uh, opportunities or events that go on during the year, during certain seasons, it affects people differently.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. I would like to hear what other people know. There's some weird feedback. I wonder. I don't know what that is. Anyway, um, so seasonal affective disorder is something that's really interesting because sometimes we hear the term, and yeah, so people will think like, oh, like seasonal gatherings and holidays and things like that. There's definitely a blues that can happen with that. Seasonal affective disorder is really something that is a little more specific and very intriguing because I know over the years I used to feel this change that would happen. My best seasons of the year are spring and summer. I love spring and summer. And when it would go to fall, like around August, I was just like, not feeling it at all. And as I went to graduate school and I got training, then I realized like there is a whole group of folks when the season changes to fall that they become depressed. And so that is what usually when we talk about seasonal affective disorder from a clinical perspective, that's what we're specifically talking about is that change from summer to fall. And so you see a couple of different things that are really interesting. So sometimes people just will feel like I was saying, I used to just over the years realize that I wasn't feeling necessarily depressed, but I just wasn't as happy and jovial because it was changing to fall. And I always attributed that to like usually, you have to go back to school and the energy of things changes. But then there's some people that go into an actual clinical depression. And then even when you have people that have bipolar disorder, the folks with bipolar disorder may have a cycle through their depressive episodes during this time. So as a psychologist, what I started to realize is if I had folks that had SAD, so seasonal affective disorder, or if I was seeing someone that had bipolar disorder around this time, I really needed to check in with them and see how they were doing because this time of year can be really tough and it's not something that people can shake off. They like really are depressed during this time. So it's just something that's been really intriguing. Um, so I've been thinking about talking about to people about like how do you deal with depression, and I know that there's some people watching, and I'm wondering for you all when you've been if you've been depressed in your own life or you've had family or friends that have been depressed, can you tell me like how you dealt with depression? Or Alethea, if you like talk with a family or friend, how have you told them to deal with depression? You're on mute.
For a good reason. For a good reason. Um, I think for me, self care is very important. and being intentional, tapping in and not be so. A lot of people at times beat themselves up like, gosh, why do I feel this way? You know, and trying to rationalize it, and it's not. It's a feeling, and so being able to do things, to sit in it and recognize and pray that it's temporary, that they love on themselves, and just know in that moment that they need to just kind of be intentional. And it's so intuitive for people to feel that they have to isolate and pull back, but rather to encourage them to be counterintuitive. That there are times when you need to be surrounded with other people because we are not only human, but we're energy. And we need to connect with positive energy and the energy of others, the love of others can help us at times. Other times, comedy is helpful as well to escape whatever is bringing on these feelings and to just find something humorous. Interacting with babies and children often helps with those feelings because, again, you're not focusing on yourself but others. And that just that unconditional love and joy is important as well. So those are, and then, so, hey, do I need to come over there? I don't need to say one word. Do I need to come over there so I can just hug on you and love on you? And if you need me to cry with you for a little bit, or just being able to take your mind off of things and just talk about everything else but the depression, I know has temporarily helped people. And then I'm curious to ask you, are there natural holistic things that people can do to counteract the depression? Is it sometimes the foods that they eat might help them as well?
Yeah, so when we're talking about seasonal affective disorder, we're talking about, so there's really two types of depression. So there's the exogenous depression, it's a fancy word of depression that's like basically situational. There's things, you break up with your boyfriend, you having money trouble, like you having trouble at work. Those situations can cause you to be depressed. And then there's something that's called endogenous depression. So it's a chemical depression that is inside of you. You typically, when we're talking about people that have seasonal affective disorder, we're talking about a chemical depression. And with a chemical depression, you can't, even though people will think that they can, you can't just talk the person out of it. People can't just motivate their way out of it. You can definitely, support is definitely helpful, but just having supportive family and friends around is not going to get people out of that depression. Because it's a chemical depression, they're going to have to do something different. And so there are definitely natural remedies. I always have to say a disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. I'm a psychologist. I don't prescribe or anything like that. But there are absolutely, there are a lot of natural ways of dealing with it in terms of herbal supplements. Mm-hmm. That would be something like if you went to a functional medicine doctor, they can certainly tell you. There's a lot, like the National Institute of Health has a portion of it that is focused on complementary and alternative medical practices, and they have a lot of good studies on things that are used to treat depression. And so, I mean, I have to tell people, just because we're online, I want nobody to try to tell them, say I was trying to prescribe or tell them something. So I'm not trying to do that. There are definitely herbal alternatives. The other thing is that people will take an antidepressant, and people have varying ideas about taking antidepressants. Some of them are okay with it, and some of them don't want to take antidepressants. I always leave that up to clients of how they want to kind of navigate that. But what I would tell somebody, if they have seasonal affective disorder, that's not something where you just don't take anything. You need to absolutely take something. What we do know, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask. I've often heard that, as you talked about the chemical depression, that possibly the lack of vitamin D or interaction with the sun, mm-hmm. Or even UV rays is a treatment that is talked about with that. So I was just curious to hear about that.
So definitely vitamin D. We know that getting out in the sun is going to make a difference. And a lot of folks have vitamin D deficiencies, and particularly because a lot of us have been working from home for over a year now. And so we may not get out and interact with the sun. I mean, like you need 15 minutes, at least 15 minutes of sun a day, just to go let the sun hit you. And so that is a big deal. And so oftentimes when I see people that are sitting in their home and they're depressed and they don't want to, people draw the curtains in their head, it's all dark in there. I'm like, you need to open the curtains. So at the very least, open the curtains if you don't do anything else. The other thing is they do have these lights that you can get, these UV lights that you can get, and you can sit in front of them. And I've actually talked to several people who have used those to treat their depression, and they said that those really work. So usually people are doing a combination of things. They're taking either some kind of antidepressant that's been prescribed by their medical doctor. They're taking an herbal vitamin or supplement. They may even take a vitamin D supplement. Let me go back and say something about the herbs. One of the things that happens with the herbs, like I absolutely believe in herbal supplements. What people will do is they will say, I want to do a natural supplement, a vitamin or herb. I don't want to take any chemicals. And so they may take the herb and they take it for 2 weeks and they say that it doesn't work. Anything that you do that's natural,
it'll take a while.
It's going, like I tell people all the time, you got to take it for 2 or 3 months consistently, not 2 or 3 months. And in those 2 or 3 months, you take it like once or twice a week and you're always skipping dosages and stuff like that. No, you have to be consistent for 2 or 3 months. And then you can make a decision about whether or not it is working for you. Now, were you dealing with something that is an antidepressant, a chemical antidepressant, you might be able to take for a couple of weeks and you may see a difference after a couple of weeks. So that's the thing that you have to balance with that. And then also diet. And we'll talk about this because in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a raw food prep along on Instagram. And that's one of the things that is important too. And I think about this, and not everybody is perfect. I had a horrible food day yesterday. I was just like, like those days where you're just doing a lot of stuff and you just realize that you're like just going. And so I had like something, I like some French fries and some chicken strips for lunch. And I was just like, no. And my body was not feeling it. I'm at an age now where my body is just like, keep on playing. We can tell you better than we can tell you.
Right. It'll let you know.
My body was like, oh, what you doing, girl? So, yeah. So like thinking about like getting your green leafies in. I love kale. I love spinach. I love broccoli. Like all of your green leafies, that's going to make a difference. If you're doing a kale salad, like a really great kale salad that's got like purple cabbage and all kinds of vegetables in it, eating your citrus fruits. Right now, we're like at the end of watermelon season, but you might be able to still get, like I got the other day, I got a seeded watermelon, getting that seeded watermelon in, your blackberries, blueberries, all of those things are going to make a difference in your feelings of depression. And then exercise. Finding the exercise that you like. Do you like any exercise? Or I shouldn't say, do you like any exercise? What exercise do you like? I shouldn't say it that way.
Right now, I'm committed to walking around my neighborhood for 30 minutes a day. And I'm trying to do yoga at night. So,
yay. You doing Girl Track? Have you been listening to Girl Track?
I haven't been listening. I have it, but I haven't listened for a while. But actually, Saturday is going to be with Diane Nash. I'm excited about that tomorrow.
I just got the email about that one. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a huge thing because, I mean, one of the things that we forget, and I heard an interview with the Girl Trek folks, and they were just saying something simple. You got to remember walking 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Now, I didn't say running. I didn't say jogging. I didn't say running a marathon. Walking 30 minutes, 5 days a week can reduce most health problems. And one of those is depression. Yeah.
Definitely. So that's my meditation time. So even when I'm getting frustrated, it motivates me to go and walk because that's the time that I can kind of just think things through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep telling myself I'm going to do it. I've been dancing a lot because I like to see these videos. I don't know if I sent them to you. Did I send them to you? There's a sister. I think she's from Dominica. She's speaking French, so she's someplace in the Caribbean. I'm assuming it's
Okay, or Martinique.
not Martinique. That's what I said. I said Dominica, but I meant Martinique.
Okay.
And they're amazing. So like I'll do those videos on YouTube. Yeah, since I haven't been getting out to yoga, but like doing activity. So it's your nutrition, it's taking a supplement and or a psychotropic antidepressant, and your exercise. Those are the things that are going to make the big difference. Or says 30 minutes isn't bad for a walk. I like dancing too. Yeah. Or even swimming. If you like swimming, I think the key is to do something that you enjoy. Don't do something that you're forcing yourself to do. So, because that's not going to last, but something that your body is going to like. Yeah, but those are the things. I think those are kind of like the big things in terms of managing depression.
So what would you suggest then? Like, so someone's watching this and they're like, I do go through that every this change of seasons. What would be their next step to find out how they can go about even if they feel like they need medication or, they want to speak to somebody? What should they do?
Mm-hmm. I would say that the first step would actually just kind of ask yourself some questions. Is your depression lasting like all day? If it's lasting all day, okay, I'm concerned. If it's lasting all day. If let's say that it's lasted, if it's just lasting 1 or 2 hours and then you do start, engaging in activity and it goes away, then I wouldn't be as concerned. But once you get like over half the day or lasting all day, and then if it's lasting for like several weeks and you can't get rid of it, then I would think about calling somebody. And so, you want to seek mental health treatment, and you want to make sure that it's somebody, one, that has the experience of dealing with depression and has experience of dealing with depression with people that look like you. Because everybody has a different manifestation of depression. And so a lot of times what we think about depression in our society is like we see people crying and, like huddled up in a corner and not socializing. That's one presentation of depression. Another presentation of depression, this is actually kind of interesting. I thought about this. Have you seen all the stuff about Sha'Carri Richardson and her response to
Allison Felix.
Allison Felix, thank you. And the commentary. Well, of course, because you.
Oh well, because I'm watching what you talk about with the Jamaicans. Okay, but
I should have known. I said, like, boy, the Jamaicans whooped everybody. There you go. You can't say nothing to the Jamaicans. They're like, what? Oh, you want to race? What? What's up? Y'all only won because there wasn't no Kenyans there. That's why.
That's okay. 1, 2, 3. That's all I have to say.
That's because there wasn't no Kenyans there. That's all. That's all I gotta say. If the Kenyans was there,
the Kenyans are long distance now.
They are long distance. I have to admit, they're not the like quick.
Right.
They're long. And it's not just the Kenyans. I think it's the Luo. I think that's the tribe. It's one of them that's what they do. They do that long distance thing. But see, I got off track because I was like, but when I was thinking about that whole kind of like mean girl thing, and like we've all seen that, just the mean black girl thing, that's a sign of depression too. And I was just kind of paying attention to some of the comments that people were making about her. And there was like some mean and like, baby girl, somebody need to help you shut your mouth.
Right. She needs help. Yeah. And she doesn't need to talk. And I think I'm concerned for her that she'll look back at this time because she's still grieving the loss, I think, of her mother, that, she's going to realize she didn't handle it as best as she could. So, like Mother says, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all.
But in that, I think that's one of the things that you got to remember. Like, that's a very culturally specific way of showing depression. And so a lot of times people won't read that. So there's lots of value judgments around her and her behavior without just really people stepping back and being like, she seems like she's really depressed. And that's a sign of depression, because somebody coming out their left side of their mouth talking to somebody, there's something going on with them clearly. And oftentimes what happens for us is that our mental health concerns become seen as character flaws as opposed to mental health concerns. So that's why I say, going back to your question of like, so what's the next step? So you got to go to somebody that knows, you know, what's going on, like what that understands. If as me as a Black woman, they need to be able to understand my experiences as a Black woman and the ways in which that I might manifest depression, so then they can treat the depression, as opposed to if I'm misinterpreting Shakari's behavior and then I'm treating this fact of like, oh, you're just a mean girl. I mean, that might be true also, but I'm also thinking about the fact that she's depressed. And so how can we address that, the underlying depression, because that will ultimately resolve the behavior.
And I'm wondering two things. Can SAD, is that hereditary, or is it individual? And if it's hereditary, oftentimes in the Black community, we don't disclose, other than, yeah, grandma got the sugar and big mama, you know, got high blood pressure, but we don't disclose medical information like that to help people understand that, you know what, this has been going through our family. And to be empowered with that information when we do go seek help. Can you talk a little bit about that?
And so I always want us to be careful with that. So one of the ways that we can conceptualize it is our family doesn't disclose it. Another way to think about it is one that we don't understand because we don't have medical terms, technology. And when I say we, I'm not talking about just people of African descent. I'm just talking about with the broader community, we don't understand mental health concerns. And so we may misinterpret what people say or do, or what they're expressing. It may be that a medical provider hasn't told us. We were talking about the situation the other day with, I was talking to the interns, and they were all surprised because there was a woman that we saw that had delusional disorder. And she was telling me how the doctor didn't tell her that she had delusional disorder. And the interns were like, what? And I was like, yeah, you know, she wrote it down in the records, but she never discussed it with the patient that the patient was delusional. The patient was thinking what was going on with her was real. And the doctor knew that it wasn't real, that it was a delusion. And so I think one of the things that has happened over time is that the power of the medical establishment means that we are constantly blaming patients for not passing down information, not sharing stuff, or stigma. Like, we've got all these things that we blame patients for, as opposed to, why don't we say, well, medical providers have done a crappy job of letting people know what is going on with them and giving them the support so they can talk to their family.
So, and we've seen or read incidents about, especially with Black women, that they go and they share something with their doctor, and their doctor kind of dismisses it or says, no, you don't need that. Or if they feel like they want to be prescribed a certain thing and they don't prescribe it. How can patients be empowered then to speak up and advocate for themselves when they're speaking to the person of authority, the decision maker, as to their health, and they're being dismissed?
Right. I mean, I think a couple of things is, like, always remember that you have a choice. You have a right to choose your healthcare provider. And so if a healthcare provider is not paying attention to you, that's not your right. That's not your appropriate healthcare provider. So you go and get healthcare from someone else. And let's say that you're just in there in an appointment at the moment and you don't think that the doctor is listening, then you can, I mean, it is okay for you to advocate for yourself. Doctor, you know, I want to make sure that you heard what I'm saying, that these are my concerns. Can you tell me what this group of symptoms I'm experiencing, these things? I'm sad all the time. I don't feel like going out anywhere. My family is saying that I'm snappy. When you hear those things, can you tell me what do you think my diagnosis is? Ask for that specifically. Ask them to give you that information, him or her to give you that information. If you ask a doctor to prescribe you something, or ask a doctor if you need a particular for a particular test, and the doctor is saying no, then I've also seen this, and I was reading this the other day. Actually, I thought it was interesting to ask the doctor to, if they say no, to document it in your record. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, people definitely come to me. Like, I give you an example, ADHD. Everybody think they got ADHD. You know, that's like, if you can't pay attention, it must be ADHD. And particularly people that are high performers, they will just assume, they won't ever think stress. They think I've got ADHD. And so sometimes people will come and they'll ask for testing for ADHD because they're in a high academically or professionally performing area, and they want to see if they need extra time or, you know, need some kind of accommodation or something like that. Well, there are some very specific things that you can ask to rule out whether or not someone has ADHD. And it'd be really quick. Like, there's a couple questions that you could quickly ask the person. And so I will tell the person, you know, they ask these questions. I know that they don't have ADHD. You don't have ADHD. You don't need testing. And I've never had someone, when I said that, to push back. But I think the reason I haven't had anybody push back on that is because then what I say is, you told me this. This is why this doesn't match. This is what I think is going on. I sit and explain to them. So what you want really is a healthcare provider that is listening to you, that you're clear, has heard your symptoms, and can clearly articulate why they think it is one thing versus the other. And so if you don't have that person, I mean, my main thing is move, get your healthcare provider that is listening to you.
Okay. So as you were talking, I'm curious, how does stress exacerbate SAD?
Oh my gosh. Just in general, like, we don't even have to talk, because seasonal affective disorder is a particular kind of depression. Depression in general is going to just be worsened overall if you're stressed out. And if you're in, I mean, a little bit of stress is okay. So everybody has stress in different situations. And stress actually kind of motivates people. So if you have like that little push, like, I don't know if you've been in a situation where you had a deadline and you were like trying to reach a goal, and that was enough to kind of push you over, you know, the hump so you can make it happen. That's actually a good thing. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's when you are so stressed out that you don't feel like you can handle the situation. That's when it becomes a problem. And then that's when people start to feel depressed. So if we think about like young people, and oftentimes we want them to accomplish things, but we don't necessarily make sure that they have the tools. So we don't give them specific lessons on how to take notes, how to study for tests, how to talk to professors, you know, if they're in college, how to talk to professors when things are going wrong. So there are certain life skills that people need in order to be able to manage stress, so they don't get to the point where they feel depressed. And then they because they're depressed, they're not as motivated, so their productivity goes down, and so then they're more stressed and they get more depressed. So then it like goes around in a cycle.
And it's interesting, as you were talking about depression, I've heard that depression is simply anger turned inward. And as you said about Sha'Carri Richardson, and some people would call it not just mean girl, but the angry Black woman lashing out, when in reality, it's just a hurt little girl inside that has been dealing with issues and has been carrying this burden with them. How does anger trigger depression, or is there a relationship between the two?
Different people socially people are socialized to express depression differently. So one of the things, and when people say like anger is, you know, hurt, you know, turned inside, or depression, however you said it, when people say that, that is one expression of depression. So when we think about depression, we think about like people that are feeling sad. So some people are going to express it and feeling sad. Some people are going to express depression and feeling unmotivated. And oftentimes younger people, sometimes men, because of the socialization in our society. And sometimes you have African Americans that may be socialized to experience, to express anger. You have Black women, you have oftentimes Asian women that may talk about headaches, backaches, stomach aches, children that may talk about stomach aches a lot, or are self-destructive. These are kind of social constructs. And I mean, and they don't, you can't like take a broad brush and sweep them across other folk, just across everybody. So not all Black women are going to have headaches or backaches or be angry. Some of them are going to be anxious, but you're talking about like kind of overall cultural things in society that tell people how to express depression. And then you also are talking about within families and communities on the ways in which people get socialized to express depression.
Well, we have about less than 20 minutes left in this great conversation. So please, if you have any more questions, shout out to Ori Lafar. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for your comments. We'd love to hear more comments from the audience as well as we're having this great discussion. So I'll open Dr. Ojelade.
I didn't realize we would go so fast. I was talking so much.
Oh no, this has been great. This has
been so fast. Yeah.
I
mean, I think depression is one of those things that we need to talk more about, because it is something that is, depression and anxiety are the two biggest mental health concerns in the United States. They depression is number one, anxiety is number two. And there are things that are easy to treat. And they are also things that are impacting large swaths of the population. And for varying reasons. When I think about people, our people, people of African descent, I think about depression kind of in a multi-layer perspective. And one of those layers is, and you see this a lot, where people will have this kind of low-grade depression. They get up, they go to work, they, have their function in their families with their kids, and
go through the motions.
They go through the motions. And you'll hear people that just be like, let me just let that slide off my back and just keep pushing. And so that's a low grade depression that's kind of always there. And a fancy clinical term for it is called persistent depressive disorder. The old school term for it was dysthymia. And there's a lot of information about people of African descent having just kind of this low grade of depression and just working through that. And just imagine what that does to the body. Because remember, if you're depressed, you're going to be more stressed. If you're more stressed, you're more likely to be depressed. And so what you have is this kind of slow grade attack on your body over time. Because that means that you're releasing more cortisol. That means you're going to have more inflammation. That means that you're likely to have like heart disease. You likely have arthritis because of this low-grade inflammation that is always present. And we get socialized because we don't have any other choice to keep moving despite being depressed. And that's really scary. Because we don't have the luxury of being like, oh, I'm not going to go to work today often. Many of us don't have like mental health days. We don't have an opportunity to just take off for being sick. Most of us just have to keep pushing on. And that's kind of one of the layers of depression that I see in terms of our people. And then you have like kind of all the layers in between. So there could be like, I'm sad because a particular thing came up, or I notice when the season changes, like we're this whole conversation today, when the season changes, then I start to feel down. And most people think of it as a weakness or something that is wrong with them when they notice that, as opposed to recognizing this is something that your body is doing because your body is going through a chemical change.
So, on top of everything that you talked about today, we have this global pandemic going on. So how does anxiety and depression look like in the age of COVID-19? And as you said, the pervasive depression that you talked about, well, we've all experienced a very persistent and pervasive depression, feelings of depression, and in particular anxiety over what the world is going on, over the upheaval, just globally and then individually. So how do we deal with that?
Okay. I'll tell you my smart ass answer, and I'll tell you my psychologist answer. My smart ass answer is I don't know. I'm going through it with y'all.
That's
I've
real.
never been through a pandemic before. I don't
That's
know.
real.
I'm depressed too. Y'all depressed? I'm depressed. What you talking about? But I mean, I think in kind of in a practical way, and we'll know more once we're on the other side of this, is, doing all those things that I say. I think when we were initially in the pandemic, everybody was just in survival mode because we didn't know what was going to happen. You and I were working, like we were working all times because we were, trying to figure out, like, so what does this mean that we're like working virtually? And 1 minute you're looking at everybody in the face, and the next minute, you're at home. And then, I mean, at some point I think all of us realized, like, okay, well, I can't just work all the time. I need to relax. I need to, take care of myself. And so finding that balance for yourself, I was, because I would leave the office and go to yoga and, then come back. Or sometimes I'd be like, all right, I'm gone for the day because I'm going to yoga. And I haven't been to yoga class in a year and a half because I'm not trying to go in no environment where there's somebody right next to me on a yoga mat, that might have COVID. And so I had to shift a lot, mentally with that, because I wasn't somebody that felt like I could follow YouTube videos and get exercise in. But I also knew that I couldn't just sit around at the house and not move my body, because my body was not okay with that. And so I had to adapt to doing yoga videos and dance videos on YouTube. I had to start, I told you I had was eating some fried something yesterday and my body was like, no. So I think all the stuff that we talked about at the beginning, how are you going to do your exercise, and however you're going to get that in, if that is, like you said, just going and walking for 30 minutes by yourself, or how are you, what are you doing with your eating, with, getting out and seeing the sun. My doctor was telling me about vitamin D. Like, she was like, oh, you need some more vitamin D. And I was like, what, me? But I realized, like, I've been spending the majority of my time inside for a year and a half. So all of those things, just thinking about what are you going to do to take care of yourself, but at the same time, like, being real. Like, so I'm saying it like, in a tongue in cheek of like, I don't know what to do. But the reality is, none of us know what to do. So anybody that's sitting up there saying, oh, I know what to do in the pandemic, these are the things you need to do, I just don't think that that's truthful, because none of us have lived through the pandemic. This is a first for all of us.
And I think shifting diet, being intentional about what we do, and being good to ourselves and our bodies has been important. I made some air fried mushrooms last night that were gone. So this time of discovering and rediscovering what you do like and what does bring you joy, I know that's been helpful.
No, wait a minute. Okay, we got to stop. I got to ask about these air fried mushrooms. Did you bread them?
No. Well, I had some breading, but it didn't turn out right. So the naked ones are much better and flavorful.
Okay, because I don't like the breading when I put it in the air fryer. Yeah. I just like the plain. Yeah, like you did the naked. Okay. All right. Okay. So and appreciating. You see, you're gonna think I'm silly, but appreciating the small things in life. I'm gonna tell you right now, that air fryer y'all bought me last year, that is a godsend.
Oh, good.
If y'all that are listening don't have an air fryer, you are missing joy, prosperity, and happiness in your life. You have an air fryer, so you can be a little less depressed. So we're gonna put that on the list. You need to have your air fryer.
Yes. It does wonders. And again, you don't feel as guilty. You know, I've started making my own ice cream, plant-based ice cream out of coconut milk, and it's great. So I used to, that was my vice, was Ben and Jerry's American ice cream. And
Mm.
once I've made my own and I'm like, I need something, and I have a few scoops of coconut mango ice cream, I'm good. And it's a glorified smoothie. But it tastes good. It satisfies the guilty pleasure, and I know I'm not incurring a lot of um, calories. So it's a win-win.
Oh, I used to do that. I would do it. I don't like coconut milk. I'll cook with coconut milk, but I don't like it like I wouldn't do it with the dessert. But like pineapple smoothies, like make it really thick and it'd be like soft serve.
Right.
And that's just
Mhm.
yeah. So I think part of what I've been realizing in this experience is to find like little spaces of joy. I realized from this is the big thing. I realized from this entire pandemic how disconnected I had become from my house. Like I wasn't living in my full house. So my office right now, you see my bookshelf. So I'm sitting in my office, and if you could see to the left of me is I have a big ancestral altar, and I would come down and like put stuff on the ancestral altar, but I wouldn't like be down here. But like for a year and a half, I've been every day hanging out with my ancestors, and sometimes I'll turn and I'll be talking to them. And that's just something like different. Like I've fixed stuff, like you had little repairs around the house, but I was so busy doing other kinds of stuff and living this other life. And then I was like, okay, well, I could be depressed, or I can, get this thing fixed or work on this, or little different things in my life that I felt like I didn't have time for.
Right.
Now I had some time for. And that's the thing about depression is like you can sit in that space of like, I don't know. There's nothing for me to do. I don't feel like motivated. I don't feel motivated to do anything. You can sit in that space, or you can make a decision that even when the depression is there, that you're going to do something different, even if it's just one thing.
That's interesting. Spirit led me to watch Collateral Beauty with Will Smith. Are you familiar with
I
that
haven't
movie?
seen it.
It's a movie about Will Smith's character loses his daughter. She has some type of brain tumor, and it talks about how he unraveled over the last 2 years. He divorced his wife. He would come to work and he would create these domino constructions that he would just let the dominoes fall into these brilliant patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And he just was not engaging. And at the beginning, prior to her death, he had made this speech about what is your why. And for most of us, those whys are centered largely around love, death, and time. And so he starts to write letters to these three entities, and then his coworkers hire actors to have them talk back to him about what he wrote in his letters. And really, what he experienced, and just thinking about how does love, death, and time interact in our own lives? Do we make time for certain things? There was one young lady who she put all her time into the job that she wanted to have a child, and she felt like her biological clock was ticking. And so she was worried about her time. And so that actor said that time is simply an illusion, and just because you didn't birth a child doesn't mean that you can't parent them and mother them in the community that you're part of. So within depression itself, and being able to be, some things can be motivated. As you said, you can motivate yourself out of the temporal depression, but those that are pervasive, or those that are clinical or chemicals, what you said, how can those entities, how can love and time influence how we're able to interact with depression and be with depression?
So you made me think of two movies. One, Passenger. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I don't think so. That's some flight movie, some air movie.
I think it's called Passenger. I'm almost positive it's called Passenger. And then a Will Smith movie we'll end with. So passenger, there is these spaceships that go to outer space, and they take people. So they're passenger ships where, just regular you and I can get on it. And what they do is you have to go, like, I think it's like 85 light years in the future. And so they put you asleep, and you can buy passage, to back in. You can do a round trip, or you can do a one-way trip. And so they're colonizing, which is problematic, another area. And on the ship, everything is asleep except for the androids until they get, so you'll be asleep for like 85 years until you get almost there, and then they wake you up. So this one guy, his pod that he's asleep in, you saw that? And so his pod opens up accidentally, it malfunctions, and he wakes up. And he's there, and he's on the ship. There's one droid that's like a bartender, but there's nobody else that's on the ship. Everybody is on the ship, but they're asleep because that's it. And he realizes, like, okay, so I'm about to die on this ship because all of them are asleep. So they're going to make it, but I'm not going to make it because I'm up now. And he goes back and forth and, decides that he's going to wake up this lady. And essentially by waking this woman up, he kills her because she's going to die now too. And of course, she's angry once she figures out what he's done. And she gets to this point. And so this is how this relates to a pandemic. She gets to a point where she realizes it is what it is. We gonna die. And I can sit up here, and it's only the two of us on this ship. They're not going to wake up anybody else because they would be killing that other person. So she decides that she's going to stop being upset about her circumstance and pushing against that. And she just decides to live. So she exercises and she loves, and she just has this full life. And so at the very end, and I feel kind of tearful as I say this, at the very end, when the ship gets to its destination, and of course they're dead, the people on the other side come in and they see all this beauty that they created on their life on that ship. And I think that that is what this time gives us right now. Whew. So
And
I was just gonna say, you can get I don't know, I feel that for myself. So like you can get caught into like, this is a pandemic, I can't go outside, I can't do anything, I'm so frustrated. When is this gonna end? Or you can live. You can just figure out how to live in this moment. That is the biggest fighter of depression, is to love. It's just to honor the time that you have. It's just to make meaning of this moment. Don't fight it. Find the beauty.
And that's amazing. Wow. I love that. I love that. What a great way to end it. And that's actually essentially what Deb said at the end, that it's not collateral damage and all these things are happening to you, but find the collateral beauty, that in the moments that you experience, that you find that joy in the midst of everything going on. So yes, I love that. Creating your own collateral beauty. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. I won't even tell you the Will Smith one, because that, oh gosh, that one. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Alethea, for coming on and talking to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah, hey, Ken. I feel like I just needed to hear that message. And so one of the things that I'm really clear about is that spirit sometimes. Tell her to say that to other people, because maybe then her ass will listen.
There's always a reason. Yeah, find the meaning. Find the meaning. So that was a very random viewing of a show last night. I usually don't watch movies that night, but so that was for a reason. So in this.
There you go. 'Cause, yeah, and it put me to
And it
it
triggered yours,
connected
yeah.
me to that, and I loved that movie. I loved the symbolic meaning of it. I mean, it was slow paced, but I just loved overall what that the movie meant. So, that being said, you all come hang out with us. If you enjoyed this conversation today, we are here every single Friday at 12 Eastern Standard Time. Next week, we are talking about African spiritual systems and the ways in which the media demonizes African spiritual systems. So, if you ever seen anything where they talk about voodoo and little, what do you call those dolls where they put the the
Voodoo dolls.
needles and voodoo dolls and all that kind of foolishness that they put on the media. Anything that with African spirituality is always demonized and made to be some kind of weird, I don't know what. So I got my sisters, a group of 6 of us coming back, and we're gonna have a conversation about like what that means and the purpose of demonizing the spiritual traditions of our ancestors. So come and hang out with us. We will talk to you then. Take care.